There's been a little bit of a development in the Netflix acquisition of Warner Brothers. We talked about how this was a real possibility a few days ago, that Paramount wasn't going to just roll over and give up on the chance to own Warner Brothers. Let's take a look here. It says, not so fast, Netflix. Paramount launches hostile bid for Warner Brothers Discovery. Get out your popcorn because there's more drama in the fight over the media powerhouse Warner Brothers Discovery. Paramount Global has sweetened its offer to acquire Warner Brothers by a bunch, offering an all-cash deal valued at $108 billion to take over the parent company of HBO, Warner Brothers Studios, and CNN, among other notable properties. It would appear to significantly outstrip the deal worth $83 billion that Netflix and Warner announced just last Friday. Although that agreement is solely for Warner Brothers streaming service and studios, if that deal were to go through, CNN and other cable channels would be spun off to other, buyers and other ownership. Oracle co-founder Larry Ellison, yada 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 yada. We know he's one of the world's richest men. He wants it bad.
Oh yeah, he wants it bad. And something that not a lot of people are talking about, but that is really important to discuss, is that if Netflix buys Warner Brothers, they're not interested in CNN. They're not interested in CNN and like the news cable channel shit. They don't give a fuck about that. But if the Ellisons get Warner Brothers with Paramount, then they absolutely are interested in CNN. I'd say, in fact, that's a big part of the motivating, factor. They really want to have that control. It's more of a right-wing hostile takeover in Hollywood. If Paramount gets it versus Netflix, they just care more about making money for themselves and destroying the theatrical industry. I thought this tweet put it really well. I'll throw it up on screen. Regarding this situation, Brendan Hodges says, I have a pit in my stomach. The competition for one of the oldest studios is between one of the most dangerous and influential families in the world and a company and CEO openly trying to destroy the theatrical experience. And that puts Zach and I kind of in a tough place as analysts, because obviously this is a political show, but you guys know we also deeply care about movies and the movie-going experience. And it really does seem like, from the perspective of movie fans, it's worse if Netflix gets it, in my opinion, because of their open intentions to destroy the theatrical industry, versus Paramount, who, I don't know if you saw this, but they've just vowed to release 30 plus movies in theaters annually if it beats Netflix. And they say, we're going to satisfy the needs of the movie going public. So, I mean, obviously this is a terrible thing either way, whether it goes to Netflix or Paramount. It's horrible for the consumer. It's horrible for the market. It removes competition. It'll drive prices up. It'll result in a mass amount of layoffs and firings in LA, right? It'll be terrible for the industry no matter what. But it does seem like, based on what they're saying, from the perspective of the movie goers, people that are into cinema and going to cinema, people that are interested in the continued existence of movie theaters as an industry, it seems like Paramount actually would be the better option. However, from basically every other perspective, it seems like Paramount would be the worst option. If you're looking at this from just someone from purely a political perspective, and you're thinking about the Ellisons and their Zionist intentions, their right-wing intentions to basically do with CNN whatever Donald Trump tells them to do with this new Hollywood apparatus, whatever Donald Trump wants them to. I think Jared Kushner is involved in the Saudi Arabian deal with the Ellisons.
Yeah, he's very involved. And I think that is, despite whatever Donald Trump may say or position publicly, is the real tell here. And that's what makes me really nervous, because where Ivanka and Jared go, typically goes Donald Trump. He'll say whatever he thinks is popular in front of a camera, in front of a microphone. He knows he's working with a public that has strong feelings about this. Just yesterday, or maybe it was even this morning, I think it was yesterday, he was on Truth Social taking shots at Larry Ellison and saying that it was a disgrace, the 60-minute interview that they did, and that they were no different than the old ownership. So at that point, I kind of got a glimmer of hope. Hey, maybe he won't be willing to work with the Ellisons as much as he would have otherwise. But I think the fact that they have the ace up their sleeve in the form of Jared Kushner really, really is going to help them move things along. And it does make me nervous that Donald Trump, despite what he says publicly, would still greenlight this Paramount merger.
Yeah. So really what's happening behind the scenes is like a blowjob competition where the CEO of Netflix, Ted Sarandos, and the CEO of fucking Paramount, Larry Ellison, they're both on their knees, deep throating as voraciously as they possibly can the penis of Donald Trump, just desperate to bribe him into accepting their acquisition of Warner Brothers, because Netflix wants it really fucking bad, but so does Paramount. And neither of them are going to give up without a fight. It will be really humiliating for Netflix if Paramount ultimately succeeds, because Netflix like put out this whole statement. They sent out this email to all their subscribers announcing the acquisition and all this stuff. So they were like projecting all this confidence. It would be kind of funny if Paramount comes in here and snatches it away from them. Although it's really not funny. It's horrible, terrible situation. Basically, either way, Netflix or Paramount are the two worst possible options. And sadly, it seems like they're the only serious options as far as who's actually interested in acquiring Warner Brothers. Universal would be the only other option that has put forth a bid, but it seems like they've totally fallen by the wayside. And that would be the best company to acquire Warner Brothers, although it would still be a disaster as far as consolidation in the marketplace goes, and it's completely ridiculous. So, it's just a really unfortunate situation no matter what happens.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a potential outcome where this doesn't happen, but I think what we got into when this was first announced, like, hey, this is the only chance of the Netflix deal not going through, and that's the fact that the Paramount merger and the Paramount offer was still out there, and it was for more money. We talked about the old Supreme Court case that you guys can Google, Henry Ford versus the Dodge brothers, and it was established that you have a fiduciary duty to your shareholders to maximize value. So there will be a legal case to determine if Warner Brothers has the right to decline an offer that is for a higher value. Now they'll say for all kinds of reasons they want the Warner Brother legacy to be in America where it was established. Warner Brothers has always been an American Hollywood company. That's really important to the people that own Warner Brothers. And a big reason why they did, in my view, decide to sell to Netflix was because it was not going to involve any Saudi money. And obviously, Netflix isn't a fucking perfect company. They make content in Saudi Arabia. They make a bunch of content in Israel. So again, it's just like a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Is there any outcome that you can imagine, Gavin, where it doesn't sell, the antitrust legislation comes through or the ruling comes through where they say, this is going to create a monopoly, which it absolutely is. You can't have it Paramount. You can't have it Netflix. It has to go to either a smaller entity or maintain independence.
Unfortunately, no. I think it's selling. Yeah. I think it's 100% selling. Because David Zaslav has basically been preparing Warner Brothers to sell ever since he came in and became the CEO of Warner Brothers. He's basically just been preparing it to be flipped. Like it's treating Warner Brothers like it's a fucking house. You buy it, you renovate it, you give it a nice new shiny DC cinematic universe headed up by James Gunn with the first successful movie. This is all just a way to add value to a product that he ultimately always wanted to flip. And insiders have been saying that in Hollywood for a while. They've been saying that for a while. They've been saying that, Warner Brothers, that David Zaslav wants to sell. He's looking to make, I think, $500 million off of the sale. That's how much he will
personally.
Yes.
Oh,
that's how much David Zaslav will personally pocket when the sale goes through. So he doesn't give a fuck about the legacy of, this Hollywood titan. He doesn't give a fuck about the history of Hollywood, which is why he's more than willing to just chop it up, sell it for parts to the highest bidders. It's disgusting. But yeah, I do think it is 100% going to sell. And, partially because of the fact that antitrust basically doesn't exist anymore. I mean, maybe if Lena Khan was still in charge, I would think there's a chance that there's a last minute miracle, but no, I think that 100% it's going to sell. And I just think it's going to be a fellatio contest. Like I said, behind the scenes, not David Zaslav, but Larry Ellison and Ted Sarandos just on their knees, deep throating Trump, trying to convince him that they're the company that deserves to own Warner Brothers and will use the properties of Warner Brothers to further his ideological agenda in whatever way Trump demands they do. Which again is a really horrifying aspect of all of this as well, regardless of the fate of the movie theater industry, which again really concerns us as cinephiles. But it's arguably not even as important as the propaganda effort that will be foisted upon the American people if the Ellisons are able to control CNN and TikTok and all these other
CBS
as well. So yeah, it's pretty fucking horrifying. Obviously, Elon Musk now controls X. We're living in a new world where, a lot of these institutions like Hollywood and all these, social media at one point was considered more like liberal coded. People like Mark Zuckerberg pretended to be liberals. Obviously, the Hollywood has always been infamous for being more liberal coded, but it does seem like, if this really goes through and the Ellisons are able to acquire control of this whole empire, then yeah, it seems like we'll see a really big shift in Hollywood.
It's a nightmare to think about. Um, and you try and think, you're like, how does this actually work out for the best? But I think what we're actually living in and what we're actually experiencing is the find out portion of the fucking around in Donald Trump's first term and then re-electing him. Because we talked about this. I didn't even realize that the Paris theater was owned by Netflix. I should have realized, because every time you go to their fucking website, it's only Netflix shit. But in my head, I was just like, oh, Netflix is putting out a bunch of stuff. They must be doing a lot of Q&As at the Paris theater. No, Gavin tells me they bought that shit years ago. And it was because there was a pivotal antitrust law on the books that said that production companies cannot own movie theaters, right? In America, we decided that it was anti-competitive to have the same people that were putting out movies be showing them in movie theaters, right? We decided that it needed to be separate. That was something that was really common in America, right? Like, you were not going to be the maker of the book of the goods and the platform where those goods are sold. Those were different things that were separated at one point before Glass-Steagall was overturned in the Clinton administration. You couldn't be an investment bank and a bank that held people's money. You had to have separate institutions to do those things. We've put that all in the shredder, guys. We've set that on fire. We're like, we love monopoly now. And they've been paving the way for this throughout the Donald Trump first term. I think a lot of people had this false impression of security that we made it out after the Donald Trump first term relatively unscathed, right? Okay, COVID was a disaster. All of those things happened, but we're fine now. Here are things moving forward. And then we reelect Donald Trump, and only then did we appreciate, as Americans, I'm saying Gavin and I were always personally concerned about this, but as a nation, we're having to reckon with the fact that all of these laws that were changed, all of the groundwork that was laid during Trump 1, now we are in Trump 2, and he's cashing in. He's collecting on all of those things that he did. And now it's just, how much can I personally enrich myself? How much can I protect myself from any kind of consequence? And how can I have as many fellatio contents, as Gavin put it so eloquently, to win over my support?
Yeah, there's nothing Trump loves more than, still playing the role of the boss on The Apprentice, having the contestants line up and try to, compete for his approval. That's still what he does when it comes to these sort of situations. And obviously, as you mentioned, the groundwork was really laid for this under the first Trump term. Some of you guys might remember the Disney Fox merger, but that was really the prerequisite to all of this, because now as Disney acquired Fox, it got so much bigger. So now, to compete with Disney Fox, now Netflix and Paramount feel like they need to also become these mega streamer, mega studios in order to even compete at all, which, again, as I predicted the other day, it's only going to lead to next a company like Apple or Amazon trying to acquire another smaller company like Disney, which, as we talked about, yes, Disney is a significantly smaller company than both Apple and Amazon and could easily be acquired by either of them if they really wanted to deal with it. So, that's what we're looking at. And this consolidation only begets more consolidation. It only encourages more people in the industry to do it. And obviously, every time it happens, again, it results in a mass firing, a mass layoff of people in a town, in an industry, which is already really suffering post-COVID and post-strike from a couple of years ago, which really left the whole entire industry just battered and bruised. As I said on the show the other day, if the industry is like a battered body on the side of the road, this merger would represent a sledgehammer straight to the skull. Its brains will splatter all over the Hollywood stars on the fucking Hollywood walkway.
Yeah, and I know as a political show, we're mostly concerned with the economic impact, right? That is going to be the foremost concern for everyone. I mean, theaters going out of business, lots of people who work in film. I mean, it is a working class job being in cinema. You might as well be talking about, any other profession. There are people who make millions of dollars in that profession, but there are also people who are just scraping by. The film industry was built by unions in this country, right? That was such a fundamental aspect of show business in this country, and it's what sustained it as a career. If you wanted to be a gaffer, if you wanted to go into hair, still very difficult, but some of the last protections that you had were because of your union. And now we're just seeing a much shittier product in general. So in addition to everybody getting treated like crap, in addition to people losing their job, the quality of the output is just not as good anymore, and it's only going to get less good. You mentioned the Fox Disney merger, but they also bought Lucasfilm for $1 billion. And what have they done with
like
the
$4
or $5 billion? He sold it to the white slavers, as George Lucas famously said, right? And after that, what happened? Star Wars became dog shit. I mean, they've really run the brand into the ground. I loved Star Wars when I was a kid. I was never like a huge Star Wars kid, but I really liked it. I had the original trilogy on VHS tapes, and I like to watch it, relatively frequently. And I remember getting excited when I first saw the prequels as a youngster, right? Now, I can't get excited about Star Wars at all. It feels ruined to me. It feels degraded to me. And I just have to pretend that nothing really came out after the original burst of prequels.
You're not excited for the Mandalorian and Grogu? Let's fucking go. No, I'm just kidding. That movie looks like dog shit. At least Star Wars fans have Andor, though. Us Indiana Jones fans, we're the ones who really got fucked in the ass with the Dial of Destiny. Total piece of dog shit. But either way, and again, before we move on to the Anna Kasparian on Bill Maher, some of the other juicy drama we're about to get into, so everyone, stay seated, buckle up. But and again, just the last thing I'll say about this is, like, even I know some people out there don't give a shit about movies at all. They really don't care about film or cinema, and that's fine. There are certain art forms that I frankly don't really care that much about. I'm not that invested in their industries, right? But I will say, fucking, you should care about this, because cinema, Hollywood, is one of the crown jewel industries of this country. We're a country with very few kind of crown jewel industries left. I mean, after NAFTA and shipping all the jobs overseas, the destruction of towns like Detroit and surrounding areas, which, really, had a lot of vehicle and automotive industries, right? Hollywood's one of the last ones fucking left that hasn't been completely outsourced and exported and, like you said, degraded here in America. It's in the, it's not in its glory days for sure, but still, when it comes to exports around the world, we're a country of cultural exports primarily, and music, movies, and TV shows and stuff like that. That should be some of the crown jewel achievements and crown jewel industries, cultural exports of this country. It has always been. And again, to give that up, it just only sacrifices more of what at one point made this country great, so to speak. One of these industries that immigrants flocked here, right, to be a part of, right? It's really sad to think about all of that history of American innovation, like you said, union labor, something that I'm really proud of as an American. That's like, there are some industries and areas where other countries have far surpassed America, but America's always kind of had that fucking unlock. Hollywood, not that there aren't other great, film industries from around the country, but historically, almost no country has put as much effort into making great cinematic art as this one. And it seems like, that's really on the precipice of changing.
Very well put. I thought you had a great point the other day that this country's in dire need of a new American wave of cinema, something that's really going to reignite that fire and remind everyone that this is a fixture of American culture. Last thing I have before we move off of the movie talk is that there is going to be an effort to get all of your favorite movie stars to act like it's no big deal that Saudi Arabia buys Paramount. And this is just the beginning. I like Dakota Johnson as an actress, but I'm always going to have a bad taste in my mouth when I watch her on screen now because of stupid shit like this. Here she is talking about the state of filmmaking in Saudi Arabia, and I guarantee you this woman's never seen a Saudi film in her whole fucking life.
In the States, it feels really grim. And even in the less than 24 hours that I've been here, I have a renewed faith in cinema.
Everybody who gets paid to say some shit in Saudi Arabia, they all say, I just got here and I was blown away and now my whole world is put into perspective. You guys are saving the day. Indistinguishable from all the stupid fucking hack comics that did the Riyadh Comedy Festival.
Yeah, and she was also just basically minimizing the effects of this upcoming merger the other day, whether it's Netflix or Paramount. She was basically saying, like, oh, Hollywood's been in tough spots before. We'll make it through, or what? Basically minimizing the impact that this will have on less privileged members of the industry who aren't fucking Nepo babies. If anyone's not familiar, Dakota Johnson's the daughter of Melanie Griffith, who's the daughter of Tippi Hedren. Like she is 100% a fucking Nepo baby. And I say that as someone who really likes Dakota Johnson. I really like Dakota Johnson. I've enjoyed both of the movies that she was starring in this year, The Materialist and Splitsville. I highly recommend them both. I genuinely, I think she's an underrated fucking actress. Some people give Dakota Johnson shit and try to pretend like she's not a good actress. It's like Kristen Stewart all over.
I was about to bring up
to
the
be
exact
honest.
same thing. Yep. Rob Pattinson also got shit.
Yep.
Another, who's a man, but also a phenomenal actor, but just because he was in a movie like Twilight or 50 Shades of Grey.
Exactly. So I do really like Dakota Johnson, as I like Sean Baker, who's also at this fucking stupid Red Sea Film Festival thing, and just said something similar. I forget what it was, but he was talking about how, like, you know, I feel so free in Saudi Arabia, or like some ridiculous crap like that. So it's just really unfortunate. And you're right, it is 100% the exact same thing. You spelled Sean. That's why it might not be coming up. But it does look like there it is. Yeah, Sean Baker comparing Saudi Arabia's new film industry to the old Hollywood or whatever. Complete fucking garbage.
Oh, yeah.
Complete fucking garbage. So it's, we pointed this out too before, but, you know, Sean Baker is traditionally, and, you know, he's always made movies which champion marginalized people, the poor, sex workers, stuff like that. To see him go to Saudi Arabia and do this fucking propaganda for them, a country which has no love for fucking sex workers or anything of the sort. Jesus Christ, it's really disappointing.
Yeah. That's particularly a bummer. It's kind of like the Bill Burr thing, seeing Sean Baker over there, because you do want to believe that he's a guy who understands it. I mean, hell, he's talked about how it's really hard to make a living in filmmaking, right? He's like, guys, after I made Tangerine, I had gotten a bunch of press, but I didn't have fucking money to make my next movie. I had to go and figure it out. What about all the people who worked on my movie? You think that they had all of their jobs lined up? He was like, it's really difficult to make ends meet. So not just on screen, off screen, he's also vocalized things that would say, hey, you kind of understand what it's like to be a working class artist, to be a guy that has this kind of a dream, and to watch him forget it so fast after he's been so blessed with like just wonderful reception to his work, which is warranted. I'm a big fan of him as an artist. Really, really, really disgusting, and honestly surprised to see that.
Yeah, it's such a bummer. It's such a bummer.